friends, we're back. We're Black and Curious. I'm Kandron.
What up, what up? It is Deja. How y'all doing?
Hello. If you've never been here before, welcome. We do a cross section of pop culture and real life. And today we are coming here with a documentary that we watched and we want to talk about it. We want to talk about it. The Dallas
Yes,
Cowboys cheerleaders called America's Sweethearts on Netflix.
baby. Granted, it has been up for a little bit, so you should have seen it
Yes.
by now. This will not be spoilers, we hope, but it's football season, so here we go.
Um, So background, a little bit of background. We both watched Making the Team, I think, with different levels of excitement. Like I was a faithful every season watcher as long as I had cable. I watched every single season. I absolutely loved that show. The
I did
Dallas
not.
Cow that's what I mean by different levels of like eagerness. So like and also I used to be a cheerleader, so I was very, very interested in this. And um I love watching Making the Team. It was great. The documentary, I, I had mixed feelings on. I had it was giving very much mixed.
Hmm.
So why don't we start talking a little bit about the differences, I guess, between the documentary and the Making the Team.
We'll do it.
So, first of all, I thought the documentary, it was interesting that they did more history. Like they really did a deep dive into the background. And actually, I actually went and did some additional research and listened to a podcast where they did like a really deep dive into the history of the podcast. I mean, into the
Hmm.
history of the squad. Um, and I was glad that some of the girls, so the Making the Team has been off the air for about 2 or 3 years. So some of my
Yeah.
favorites had retired by the time this documentary came out. Like they retired probably a year or two after. So I didn't get to see their final season. So I was happy that some of those girls were a part of this show, mainly being Kat, who I saw make the team, and then I didn't get to see her retire. And then Ashley, who I follow, I mean, I still follow some of the girls on Instagram, but Ashley was huge. And we didn't get to see her retire either. Um, I would say that the documentary was more candid. Like I was surprised that they even cussed on it a little bit. Not a lot of it, but a little bit.
They had a lot more freedom, and I feel like it's kind of like what I like in when I watch Bravo shows on Peacock. You get more of the reality of what's happening versus what they curate for cable television.
Right, for sure. Um, and actually I listened to something, I don't remember, but Victoria, who was heavily featured in the documentary, actually said that she liked the documentary process better because the Making the Team process was more focused on like the drama of getting cut and like the whole entire process and every bit of drama that they could tease out of it. Not drama amongst the girls because
Reality
they don't really
TV.
tolerate that. Like that's which we'll get to, but they don't really tolerate like drama amongst the team, but just like amping up it's probably more trauma than drama and like the
Hmm.
bad comments and the all of the different things that they did on that show that were pretty objectionable and not nice. Not
Yeah.
nice.
I think the overall just setup of the show, I watching the documentary because it's like to the point of what you made earlier. I haven't really watched Making the Team in some years.
Yeah.
And so I forgot about how strict they were in terms of like what you had to look like, what the like the in terms of when they started getting down to them being able to fit into the costumes and how they were critiquing their bodies.
Yes.
That was a
Yes.
lot for me to watch
Yeah.
as a bigger woman and just seeing these young, because there some of them might have been in their early 30s, but nobody was past like 31, I think.
Yeah,
But like
no. Nobody's past 30, really. Like 31 is like the absolute cap, and some of them are
yeah,
young as 17 or 18.
right. And I'm just like, because the one girl, I can't remember her name now, but she was a legacy. Her mom was also a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader in the
Oh, Victoria.
documentary. Okay, yeah. And so she clearly has like the beginnings, if not full on like eating disorder issues,
Yeah, let's come
potentially.
back to that. Let's come back to that. Yeah, we're gonna get there.
I'm just thinking, like you brought up like the strenuousness, and it just made me think
Yeah.
about like. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, we gonna
Let me
get
pull
there.
up the
Um
let me pull up the outline. The outline. Sorry,
yeah,
y'all.
yeah. Also it had like a lot of I like that it had more Kelly. I thought um Kelly and Judy are part of the whole fabric of this thing. And so Kelly actually seeing her like in her home and all of the things like it was really it felt like a behind the scenes more so than like focused on the girls and like you said like nitpicking their bodies, which actually came up in the podcast is called America's Girls, and it came out about 2 or 3 years ago, but it has come back into the conversation obviously with this documentary being out. And they talk about that a lot where like they were really, and we saw them do it, like they were really harsh. It was like
And these are
that.
young women.
And this is interesting too. Kat actually revealed, because she's been doing a lot of behind the scenes talk on like TikTok and Instagram and stuff, more on TikTok. But she was basically like, you get the same uniform. Like, you don't get to size up in your uniform. Like, this is the one you get when you start cheering, and you don't get a new uniform. So your measurements and everything have to stay
Have to remain the exact
exactly the
same.
same.
Which is crazy because like as women, as we get older, especially if you start at 20 years old, by the time you get to like 27, you're growing into your womanly body. Your shape is going to change. So like how is it that they don't have any sort of flexibility? I don't
Which I
know.
think actually comes to a interesting point about the squad. They actually have some version of term limits. Their
Yeah.
term limit, their max is about 5 years.
I
There
mean,
are
they have to.
special,
Them girls had hip issues.
we're gonna get there. There are special girls that they want to cheer a sixth year, but you have to almost be invited to cheer the sixth year. Like the
Yeah.
5 year is really, it is understood that that is your cap. Once you hit five, you're
That's it,
hanging up
girl.
your uniform. That's it. So if you're starting at 20, you're not gonna make 27. Like you gonna make 25 and then you out the door.
Right.
So
Yeah.
anyways, all right,
Agreed.
let's get into the nitty-gritty. A lot of the issues that that I probably will talk through have to do with pay.
Girl, we on the
And
same
they
page. I don't know
all
what she's talking about.
well, that's what I'm saying. But and even like a lot of the other sub issues still fall under pay because y'all not paying these girls and y'all not
At
paying them
all.
enough. And for all of the other issues that they are going through, they still not getting paid enough to go through these issues, and they're not getting paid to remedy the issues that are created in this environment. So let's get to
Right.
it. Um, Charlotte Jones, the owner's daughter who runs the squad, could not have pissed me off more.
Girl.
So we start talking like the documentary, it like one of the episodes really talks about the legacy of the squad and all the things. And she is basically like, yeah. And so they outright ask her, like, why aren't they paid more? Like, what is the pay? What is the deal with the pay?
Mm.
And she's kind of like, it's their honor to cheer for us. So we pay
Like,
them.
girl, what? We don't work for free. We're not injuring our bodies for free. Like, what are you saying? That like that? Because there's a girl, I've forgotten. I've watched it so long ago now, but one of the
Yeah.
girls that was she was a graduate essentially, and her little sister was trying out for the team.
Yes. I
She had
forgot the
all
name.
these damn surgeries, and she was on
Yes.
crutches.
Yes. And listen, for just to finish up with Charlotte, let me drag her right quick because, ma'am, you are a nepo baby. Not to say that, I'm not saying she didn't go to school. I'm not saying she didn't get an education or whatever the case may be.
Whether she
But you
did
are
or
in this
not is
position because
irrelevant.
you are in this position because your dad owns this team. And
Yes.
so, how dare you, nepo baby, who has not had to work your ass off in this way, tell them that they ought to just be honored to be here?
Right.
Are you serious? Like, be deeply serious with me right now.
And the pay is what, like something like maybe between 20,000 and 30,000 for the season or something
For
like
the
that.
season. So
So
basically
the
they get paid by the game. And it's more than it used to be because it used to be like next to nothing. They cover this in
yeah.
detail on the America's Girls podcast too. If you're interested, go listen to that next. But yeah, and they actually had a copy of the contract from a while ago. So it may be a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. less, I don't know, but yeah. Basically, they pay them next to nothing. And it's like, you guys are admitting that these girls are an essential part of this brand, this Cowboys
Hmm.
brand, but you're paying them next to nothing per game. They weren't paying them for practice for a very long time. They just started paying them for practice like in the modern era. So, and a lot of them, they're working full time and because they're not getting paid anything. So they're
They
like
have
having
to.
to work and then you can't be late. There's like a whole Bible, basically a cheerleader Bible, and you can't be late. And so they're like rushing off from work to try to get to these practices and stuff. And it's like, huh?
Like,
Like,
make it make
no,
sense. Either
camaraderie
you
is
need
not
to.
enough.
Right. It gives the in the influencer world that we live in now, where companies want to pay you in product versus
Yeah.
and like pay you in
Exposure.
product and exposure versus
Mhm.
actual dollars and cents because the world we live in requires dollars and cents.
100%. Absolutely. So it was a lot for me. It was a lot for me. That part, I was just like, you have some nerves. Yeah, you have some nerve, lady. Oh, and they do have like opportunities to make more money if they go to show group or they go to other events or whatever. If they make show group, which is a separate audition, then they get like other events and stuff that they can go to, which is crazy. Crazy.
But even still,
Um,
like they still have to do that around whatever their real life is set up as.
absolutely.
Because there was the one of the girls that was trying out was a dentist.
Yes.
Some were nurses. Like I'm like, they work in 12-hour shifts. How in the hell do you do that and then turn around and come here and do all this strenuous like activity? Like,
Yeah.
there's no way.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And then to get to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, the injuries.
Yes. The injuries, the mental stress, the physical stress on the bodies, like
Mhm.
I was just looking like there's no they out here getting jacked up like they are NFL players,
And my
minus the
thing
CTE.
like I was glad that they showed this part because I know a lot of people don't consider cheerleading to be a sport, but as somebody
I don't
who
see how.
cheered, let me tell you something. It was very strenuous on the body. And I wasn't
Yeah.
doing nearly of what was they were doing. We were working year round. We were running and showing up at the games. Of course, we're not like it's not that specialized training, so to speak, but we were
Hmm.
running all the time. We were showing up at games. We were practicing every few days. It was a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So seeing them like literally needing hip replacements at 30, that's
Right.
crazy.
Hell, before that, that other girl, she said that I don't even think she was 30, the one I'm talking about with the crutches. She had had a hip replacement the year prior, and then at the time of filming, she just had the other hip replacement, and she wasn't even 30 yet. And my thing is, these things are happening to you, and you don't even have children yet. So, like, on a taking it to a different direction, when we are giving birth, our hips move. So how the hell is that gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the amount of change that happens to these women's bodies just for the sake of them being given clout because they were Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders and getting pennies is not, it just doesn't add up to me because this is
It
a
doesn't add up.
lifetime of physical pain that these people will be in. You know what I
And
mean?
then
Like, I don't know.
and then think about it as like I know there's been a push to in the NB no sorry the NFL toward having like funds for players once they're out of the league so that they have insurance so that they can get help for getting banged up, getting CTE related stuff, like they're actually able to, like get health insurance or some sort of health insurance and having a fund for that. And I'm like, I feel like they should be paying for these girls' health insurance for at least another 5 years after they cheer to make sure that they get the hip replacements or any physical therapy that they need or
That part,
whatever
they
so
can
that
afford
they
it.
can go resume their lives and have some sort of functional life after this is over and after you paid them pennies. Like, can you imagine you're 25 and now you have to go find a really good job that's going to pay for your hip replacement? Like, what the?
Like, what kind of shit is that? And then to have to explain to your new employer that you have to have a hip replacement surgery And not that because a lot of jobs don't require that much detail, but obviously, if you're doing FMLA, they're going to ask for medical information as to what is going on. Like,
Mhm.
they're going to be like, I can't imagine that people are going to automatically believe it unless you have the documentation to prove this is what's needed and required for you to
Yeah,
continue to have some sort of quality of life. But, like,
absolutely.
girl,
Absolutely.
no.
Um,
And they don't get
circling,
paid for real? No.
yeah. And like circling back to the amount that they're getting paid, I heard that the mascots who are usually men, get paid a lot more, like a livable wage, like 60, $70,000 a year. And they're getting paid maybe 30, maybe top end.
That's what I'm saying. It's like 20, it's in that middle range. And who knows if everybody is being paid the same.
They aren't, because even on the show, they talked about how pay is based on how many years you've cheered. So I guess you get a bump every year. But also, like I said before, show group, how many appearances you're available for, how many, you know what I mean? Like how far
It's
you
really
go. I
insane.
assume they have to pay them some sort of release. I don't know, maybe not. If they're in the calendar, for instance, or things like that. So I think it's all kind of like nickel and dime together, but I don't think it exceeds 30,000.
No, I don't think it does either.
Wild.
It's really sad. Like,
Let's let's go
this
to
is an
this.
institution that has been around since like we came into existence because it started in what, the 80s,
No,
early
on
80s.
longer,
Was
longer.
it in the 70s?
Yeah, it
I
might have
thought the
been even
documentary
further back.
said I don't know. I thought the documentary said that they came to be like 84, 83,
Mm-mm.
84.
No,
Maybe
way
I'm
before that.
mistaken.
Way before
Maybe
that.
that's when they really became popular. Maybe that's what I was
Maybe.
thinking about. But yeah, like either way, if you became popular in 84, 83, that's 40 some years of like y'all need to at this point you should have come full forward in terms of giving the women what it is that they need.
Mhm.
They should get damn near the equivalent of what the athletes the well football players are getting because they too are also athletes and they're
Mhm.
having major physical injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the other, like we were talking about the stress and stuff, and
Yeah,
coming back around to Victoria. Like she was sidestepping it a lot, but that girl clearly has an eating disorder or had
very much
one
so.
and was trying to recover from an eating
Hmm.
disorder.
Hmm.
And
And
I can't imagine she's the only one.
right. But the thing is, I could imagine, and would not even imagine, I can understand why they do. When you have people that are critiquing your every curve and you're like this big as it is, and they're critiquing your every curve and like new growth or whatever, like what? I could not imagine. Every inch of my body is being critiqued so that I can fit into this costume that is like this big.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting they were kind of saying this. I noticed that Kelly and Judy, when the girls were getting weak at practice and stuff, they would say fuel your body. You need to fuel your body. And I'm just like, that is code. That it feels very coded. It felt very like we know y'all aren't eating. We know why y'all aren't eating, but you have to eat something at least at practice. You know what I mean? Or like at least when it's time to perform. It didn't feel, and I know they have like nutritionists and that's been a part of the show at different times, but at the end of the day, if your margin for error is like a short that's this big and a top that's like a bikini, you don't have no margin for error.
Hello, literally,
And
literally. And if
granted,
you're so concerned about what they physically look like, then you all need to be providing their meals from the time that they come to camp
that's enough.
until they leave. Like, if
Yeah,
nothing else, if you can't physically deliver meals to them every day, you can have those like ready-made kits that are nutritionally sound, and at least you know that you're doing your part as a business to ensure that these women don't come out more harmed than when they got there.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and while we're talking about, things they can do, um, of course we've heard like other teams have filed, or sorry, cheerleaders from other teams have filed lawsuits of like, hey, y'all are not even paying us minimum wage. And in a lot of these cases,
As they should.
what they do instead of actually doing the right thing and paying the women what they deserve is just ending the team. So there's this like tension of like, do
I
you
didn't
want
know
to,
that.
yes, do you want to be the one to complain and cause it to be over altogether? Or
Mhm.
do you want to just
That's fucked
grin and
up.
bear it?
I did not know
So,
that. But
yes,
I mean, can so
I
to
think it's
be
in the,
like candid, I cannot imagine that they would just up and be like, all right, well, you asking for more money, we're not trying to give you no more money, so fuck it. We just go scrap the team. This whole like Dallas Cowboy cheerleader thing is an institution in and of itself that
of
stands
course,
alone, or like
of
not necessarily
course,
alone, but aside the football team.
of
So
course.
like they're making money off of these girls, but yet you don't want to pay them. That is
It's
crazy
a
to me.
marketing thing. I think it's
Yeah.
under their marketing budget, but like, no, not in Dallas. They wouldn't in the cheerleaders in Dallas, but the other teams have definitely done it. I think the example from the podcast was the Buffalo Jills. So there's like the Buffalo Bills and then the Buffalo Jills, and they one of their cheerleaders filed suit and they just ended the team. And there's been precedent of that all in other areas in the NFL. I want to say the Raiders and the Raiderettes, and some of them are bringing back other types of dance teams, whether co-ed or like less sexualized or whatever the case may be. But yeah, they just be like, girl, well, then y'all not worth it at all. And I feel like that ends up putting the onus back on the women to just shut up.
I know that's fucked up. But it's just like at the end of the day, you are hiring these people to do a job. They should be paid a fair wage. And that's really what it
Period.
comes down to.
Period. Full stop.
Fair wage, and also they need, to your point, like some sort of health insurances to ensure that the damage that their bodies endure at the time of work, they're able to be able to sustain after leaving said organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's quickly talk. We done with the pay and the wages and
Yeah.
all of that. Let's move
Hmm.
on. I this something that made me a little bit uncomfortable, but I was like, okay, it is Texas. I feel like the documentary had a decidedly like Christian damn near Project 2025. I actually called what's the girl? Reese, the new girl that they were
Hmm.
trying to bring onto the team, or she actually made the team and she was good, but it was giving Project 2025 Barbie.
Yeah.
And I just felt
21 years
like,
old talking about she getting married.
and it was just like everything and I'm like, again, it's Texas, so of course like the Bible and Christianity, and it's but something about it felt a little bit uncomfortable for me because it
Yeah.
was like, also I feel like that's where some of that like women docile training comes into place, you know what I
Yes.
mean, of like it's almost like, I don't know. It's like I know they do Bible studies together and they're like very engaged in, each
They
other's
went to
lives,
church
but going to
as a
church.
team.
We saw the groups going to church together, and it was just like something about it felt really off to
Hmm. I don't disagree. I just, outside of the religious aspect,
me. Mm-hmm.
her in particularly, I just
Yes.
was like, what the fuck? And I knew this is Texas, so I had to remember. And but she
Mm-hmm.
was from like somewhere in conservative Southern California, right? Or like
No, Florida. I think it was like
another, no, Florida. That's what it
I
was.
think
I
it's
knew it
on
was at the
Florida.
bottom. It was at the
Right. I
bottom of
think
the
it was
country.
like outside of Jacksonville or something like that. Like, but that, okay, for a bit of context, let's break away a minute. Northern Florida up by Jacksonville and all that area, that's like Southern Georgia.
It is
So it's
totally
not,
different.
it ain't the same. And I've
South
lived up
Florida
that way. So
is South Florida is giving very international
it's North
Caribbean
Caribbean.
community.
I say South Florida is North Caribbean, North Florida is Southern Georgia. In the middle, where you think like Orlando, Tampa, that's the only thing that people actually think. It might even be a small little circle around Disney. That's Florida. The rest of this stuff is other parts. But go ahead.
um, her in the climate that we have been in this year of the year of our Lord 2024, and all this stuff that has happened in the last, like last few years,
Yeah.
to be honest, her coming on and having this conversation around, oh, I just can't wait to be married. And
She's
he's
that.
willing to just move wherever it is that I'm going to be. And he's going to be the provider. She didn't exactly say these things, but that's just the tone in which
It
she
was
was
the tone.
speaking. I was just like, girl, you are 21 years old. Like, what do you know? And I understand that there was a point in time when our grandparents were told if they went off to, if they were lucky enough to go off to college. Let me correct myself. When our counterparts' grandparents were
I will
told
say that.
that when they go off to college as a woman, this is your time to find your life partner, and you get married, you settle down, and you go on and so on and so forth.
Get yourself an MRS while you're getting your degree.
Right, because the MRS is what mattered. Like
Mhm.
your degree is irrelevant. I that shit stood for that time frame, probably barely, but it okay, whatever. That's what we knew at that time.
Mhm.
Here we are, years and years upon years later. I'll use like my mom is 66, she'll be 67 in December. 67 years later, we should not still be there. That is not what you should be telling your daughters to aspire to go get your fucking MRS in addition to your degree, because what matters is like, you becoming a housewife and a homemaker. Like, and not to say that there's anything, if you truly desire to do that shit on your own accord, and it's not because it's been indoctrinated into your
Yeah.
psyche that that's who
Hmm.
you are and who you should be, and that's the only thing that there is for you, like, okay, boom, got it, check. Do you, girl? But in the event of someone who's 21 years old, your brain ain't fully formed yet. And that does not actually happen until 26. And when in the era of when we have laws that are trying to make it so that women and girls have to be married and do certain things before they are fully formulated up here, like, come on now. I just watching that just seemed like this would be very dangerous if she goes on to be a part of the reality TV show if
Yeah.
they bring it
Well,
back.
I don't think they're bringing it back, but I hope they bring some version of a reality show back because I mean I just loved it honestly. It was purely for me, purely
I
for
more so
me. But it was
watched
really
the Hard Knocks, the football version. I enjoyed
okay.
that.
Yeah. It,
I liked
but
watching the
no, it was
men.
high. It was high rated. The show was doing well on. I think they just couldn't get to an agreement as far as why it didn't come back, but people loved it. Um, but back to Reese, I just beyond her just like having that, whatever. The fact that they couldn't wait to like show her around. Like the fact that when they did the Dolly Parton performance, she was the one they chose to go do the flowers and the whatever. And it's just like there is a type of girl they like, and it is a Reese girl. It's a
Hmm.
very, yes, ma'am. Yes, like very docile, respects authority, very like
No woman
that's who they like.
independence.
That's the kind of girl they like. And we've seen it over and over. Like, well, those of us who have watched the show. And I'm not saying I don't even think it's necessarily a racial thing. I think any girly that comes up and is like that is very does well
Hmm.
with Kelly and Judy. Doesn't make a fuss, is always everywhere on time, whose life is just devoted to this and I'm just so excited and I'm so happy to be here. Oh, I wanted to talk about this too, because this is from not the documentary, but the show. They want this to be your dream. Like
Yes.
one
Labor.
season,
Dreaming
there
of
was a
labor.
girl. Yeah. There was a season, a girl was like, hey, if I don't make this squad, I'm gonna go try out for the Rockettes. And they found out and they fit and they cut her because they were like, we don't want to be number two to the Rockettes. So you're out. We want this to be your dream. And I'm just like, this is
Yeah, but
5 years of somebody's life.
right? I'm like, but how is that like a
Max.
a number two if she's saying if she doesn't make you're number one, they're number two. If she don't make this
Right.
team, she going to the Rockettes. Like,
Yeah.
girl, bye. It's just too
So
much. It's really
it
not
was a
that
lot. It's
serious.
a lot of like controlling things that they have over the girls that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think oh, while we're talking about Reese, the there's like a trad wife path on this as well. Very much
Yes,
that.
that's what she gave.
So
She was like
Kat
the
was
poster
talking about
child.
this. Yeah, Kat talked about this a little bit too, and like I said, I do follow some of the girls. I'm not gonna hold you. The black girlies that I like from the show, I will take and follow them on Instagram. So Kat actually talked about this a lot, where she was just like, yeah, like after the squad, a lot of the girls have they maybe get proposed to while they're on their squad. They may be in their last year or their last what season, whatever. They get the ring, they start having babies,
Mhm.
and it's just like a well-trodden path. And she was like that wasn't her path. And so as a result, like she was struggling to see like how she fit in with her friendships and stuff, because this is all they were doing was like baby showers and wedding showers. And it was
Mhm.
like, you know,
That's when you have to realize that your friend group is transitioning. Because we had those friends out of college
yeah,
that went off to be
absolutely.
married and have children and carrying on, and we was out here still frolicking and, figuring shit out.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. So,
but yeah.
I mean, it was interesting. And then I will say, just from a sideline, something that I actually enjoy. I liked it. I thought the documentary was informative, but I don't think it gave what they thought it was going to give. I will say, as far as TikTok, there's been a lot of videos on TikTok, especially the girls at their weddings, which always think is sweet. Like they always have they do their signature dance at the wedding, and the bride gets to be the point of her own triangle, which I love. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, which is that's prestigious. I know I'm talking in code, but that's like prestigious to be the point of the triangle. So
I
it's
mean,
like,
similar to like Divine Nine weddings, they do similar things too.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, honestly, I'm glad you brought that up, because it feels like post, being
Tradition.
on the team, it feels like a sorority, from as
Exactly.
far
That's
as I could
exactly what
tell,
it
and they
is.
have their traditions and they have all their things, and so yeah, it was an interesting watch.
Yeah, I'll say that. I was shocked at what I learned. So, if you have not seen it, hopefully it still is on Netflix.
I hope
Watch
it
it.
is.
I mean,
People are still
it's
talking
football
about it.
season. It's football
Yeah.
season, so watch it. Drop down, put your comments in the comment box, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.